Hey everyone, welcome to the UFO live stream. Today's guest is going to be TruthSeekah. For quite some time, I've been wanting to talk to somebody other than me, always just talking about it, about not necessarily the connection between UFOs, demons, angels, and spirits, but generally that, at least from what I've experienced, from what I know, that it's all coming from the same place. And I can't say that until I start talking to TruthSeekah, I can't say that he has the same belief system, but I would love to hear his point of view on this. So before we continue and introduce the guest, I want to just let you know real quick in the comments, whether you're using YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch to watch this, please put in the 3 little stars. That's, I believe, shift A8 for any questions. So 3 little stars and then question followed by that. Or following that, so that way it jumps out at me and I know it's directed towards the guest. You can also log into Telegram using the link in the description below and log into the UFO Hub Telegram group, and you'll see that there's a voice chat going on right now, and it's also simultaneously broadcasting. So you can later on during Q&A just log in, raise your hand. That's basically what I mean by that. There's a little fella with a raised hand there. Tap that button and you'll be able to get in my queue and ask TruthSeekah a question yourself. So everything is looking pretty good. So without any further ado, let me bring in TruthSeekah. Welcome. How are you?
Hey, brother. I'm well, man. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm glad we're able to speak today, because for a while, or actually it's been a while back, I made this video. It's actually what I call the intro for UFO Hub, and I guess the words, if I'm trying to remember them real quick, were simply saying that it's occurred to some of you, but not something. I'm butchering my own words. It's occurred to some of you, but it hasn't to a lot of you, that the metaphysical and spiritual subjects go hand in hand with the UFO phenomena. Now, we haven't really spoken prior to this, so I don't know where you stand on this. And again, this doesn't have to be UFO related at all, but I often mention it whenever I can because based on my experiences and other people's experiences, the spirituality and metaphysical really does interconnect with UFOs. So at least I figured we can go into some details regarding that. But as always, I just would like to introduce yourself and then go a little bit of background information about you as well, please.
Great, great. Again, thank you for having me. So I go by the name of TruthSeekah. I'm a spiritual and esoteric hip hop artist, and so I try to articulate my beliefs and my experiences through the form of hip hop and also other things, guided meditations, breathwork sessions, and so many different blogging. I got a book out. It's the title of this episode: Spirit Realm, Angels, Demons, Spirits, and the Sovereignty of God. And just trying to find different mediums to articulate the beautiful truths that I've come in contact with about the spirit world and about how its influence that it has upon our lives, and everything that we do has a ripple effect in the spirit realm as well. So I've given my life to study in that aspect, and have had experiences with it ever since I was a toddler, really dating back to when I was 4 years old, of waking up in my room and being what I felt like attacked by shadow beings, these beings that are in your room, and they were on my chest and actually pinning me to the bed, these two dark shadow beings. And for me being so young in that experience, I woke up in sheer terror. But um, what it did, it birthed something within me at the age of 4 that kind of marked me for the rest of my life. It actually would change the type of movies that I wanted to watch. If we were going to rent a movie for the weekend with my friends and family and cousins and stuff, and everybody's picking a movie, I'm picking a horror movie. I'm picking a sci-fi movie that's about those type of subjects because I was always interested. And even though you would be too scared to talk about that stuff or bring it up, I would do it. I would bring it up at sleepovers. We're telling ghost stories, and I would say, "Hey, have anybody ever had this happen to you? Wake up in the middle of the night and there's something in your room." And the more you talk about it, eventually people say, "Yeah, I've heard about that. I had this other type of being, a shadow being that was wearing a trench coat and a hat walked into my room. Wow, that's weird. Never heard of that one." Someone else would say, "Yeah, my dad had it happen, and he calls them witches, and they're not necessarily bad. I've heard stories about them waking people up in the middle of the night when their houses were on fire." And you start to hear these stories. So that experience dating back to 4 years old um, had so much impact on me, and even to what I'm doing today. And I just tracing everything back from these monumental experiences with spirituality, with spirit beings, UFOs, ufology, the first time seeing a UFO, or even watching those movies and watching Fire in the Sky that scared me and made me think that monsters were real because it was so-called based upon a true story. So that intrigue was within me my entire childhood, and I ended up getting into the occult at a young age and getting into Satanism and witchcraft, which really opened up a door for me to make contact with similar entities that I believe that were trying to contact me when I was a child. But it was down the negative path, and I was a misguided youth, a misguided teen, and then I mixed the occult and witchcraft and spirit contact with it. And needless to say, that didn't end up good. I was about 16 when this happened, anywhere from 13 to 16 when it got really deep, and ended up almost getting into paranoid schizophrenia, hearing voices, making pacts with entities that would speak to me in the middle of the night, pull me into trances mid-sentence, and I couldn't control it. I would turn pale. I would begin to shake and see spirits and colors and shapes, and they're all whispering different languages to me, and my heart would race, and it wasn't pleasant. It didn't look like it did on the movies, all the movies I watched, when you would see this stuff happening in a beautiful light. So all of that to come to a head to where I called out to God for help, at this moment of rock bottom, and having voices speaking to me and shadows dancing in the hallways, and hearing footsteps, and just almost being tormented by those types of entities that I made pacts with. And so called out to God in this last hope of desperation at 16. I was really young when this happened, and asked God to come into my life and forgive me of dabbling in those realms, and close those doors, and he did. And so I got in church and had an encounter with God. September of 2000, September 7th, I rededicated my life back to God, and have been following that path ever since. And so on the Christian path, going to church and youth group at the time, there's a monotony there, but there's still some exploration upon spiritual subjects and spiritual matters. But um, my studies started to take me even deeper. And to be honest with you, a lot of things came full circle, and I began to be reintroduced to many of the things that I was interested in as a youth, that I was handling without responsibility, and tapping into it without a life that was devoted to love and peace and honor, and to really be able to carry that fire and be able to be in two realms at once and maintain sanity. So everything came full circle for me, and I began to see a lot of the things that I ran from the occult within the Bible, including UFOs, including spirit contact, being taught from beyond the grave by the ancestors, reincarnation, communing with angels, leaving your body, all of these things that the majority of Christendom would deem the occult, or deem New Age, and we should stay away from because it's demonic. I found that the very patriarchs and people that I looked up to within the Holy Scriptures were practicing many of these magical and curious arts from a place of compassion and from a place of a life devoted to those things. So my story comes full circle to now be reintroduced to many of the mystical and metaphysical aspects of life, and finding biblical grounds for many of them that would not speak against it, because the majority of Christendom would again label these things and tell you why we should stay away, or tell you why it's demonic. Even what I bring to the table with ufology, uh, any Christian that you ask, the majority of them are going to tell you that the link between UFOs and the spirit world is strictly demonic. Hands down, there's no question about it. Not even Space Brothers, not even any theory about maybe it's us from uh, 1,000 or 1,000,000 years coming back to our former selves. Any of the theories that we like to explore in ufology, Christendom would say that that they have the staple on that subject, and that is demonic. And so my studies and my experiences have proven otherwise, and I tie it back into the angels of the Bible and the angelic heavenly hosts that are watching over humanity and have been since our conception. So I know that's a mouthful, brother, but that is a introduction in my worldview, and where I'm coming from with this discussion tonight.
No, that's great. It's just I kept thinking that's a lot to unpack because, excuse me, I know I'm not limited on time, and you were saying you are not either, if I'm not mistaken. So, at least we don't have to hurry up and try to rush over things. So, based on from your point of view, what do you feel like would be the best to start with, to just kind of start, get things going and start unraveling what all of this is about?
Yeah. What is it all about? That's a mouthful, because I think it's about a lot of different things. I will say this, um, my book about spirit realm, angels, demons, spirits, and the caveat to those are the sovereignty of God. And what that means is how the creator has orchestrated this realm um, meticulously, how everything and everyone, every being, every angel, every demon, every microscopic organism, the ones we've encountered, the ones that we know, everything has a purpose, and everything works together cohesively. And so when it comes to angels and them having jobs and ufology, there's jobs, there's hierarchy, there's duties. The ants are created with a specific duty. Buzzards clean the earth. Even if we throw down candy or old food, there's coyotes and there's buzzards and there's creeping things that come out of the earth to clean it up, and they go back to whence they came. And when I approach the subject of spirituality, whether it's the realm of the angelic or the demonic, I would say that these beings have the same type of responsibilities, and that they all have a purpose. Everything in our life is here to serve us and to teach us, and everything and everyone, all of the beings, even the good, the bad, the ugly, the scary, everything serves a purpose. And so that's something that is worth looking into when it comes to anything in the spirit world. And if that is just to have the role of a messenger, because we know that the word angel only means messenger. It's those who carry a message. And so whether it's the Elohim, whether it's the seraphim, the Raphaim, these different types of orders of angels, that they carry messages with them. Some of them hold the mysteries of heaven. They hold the mysteries of God. They give you downloads about the things of heaven and in the spirit realm and how it works and how it operates. Um, the demonic, when we look into that realm, which is it's not really fun to look at for many people. But if I look back at my life, I understand that those pacts that I made early on with those lower level entities, um, there was a lesson in it. There was a lesson in it for me that I learned, and now this day I'm very thankful that hindsight is 2020, but I'm able to look back, and there's a graciousness, there's a gratitude to the Creator and to those beings for imparting such a hard lesson that I learned. But I did make it out, and I am here today to tell my story. So just the fact that everything works cohesively together is just beautiful. Um, Orchestra, if you will, of the levels and the hierarchy and the types and beings, and we all work to complement one another, I think.
So, for example, would you then consider the Space Brothers, the UFOs, all these things? Would they be in that category of messengers as well?
Yeah, I think it obviously gets complicated, but I do think that they are the ones who have been watching over us since the beginning. You hear some of the work of Zachariah Sitchin about the Anunnaki and these beings that were sent here to seed or create mankind. It really there's a middle ground there with the work of Dr. Michael Heiser, who talks about the divine council of the Elohim and these gods and these beings that came down and were almost the hand of Yahweh or the hand of the supreme creator on the face of the earth. And so I do think that tracing back, there was advanced civilizations, and that many people believe that our DNA was tampered with at some point. So when we read about these beings that were far more sophisticated, far more enlightened, far more spiritual, and they're in all of our holy books, not just the Bible. I'm just very well versed in the Bible, but when you go to the Bhagavad Gita and you go into Chinese lore, Chinese legend, and also the Native American legends about the Star People, and you start to see a similar story. And it wasn't these uh, divisive evil beings that created mankind. It was our creators. And so, yeah, I think that many of what we're seeing, if not all, in the sky are what we would call angels. They are messengers, and they have a role. They have things that they do upon the earth, and so whether that's bringing in the seasons, whether you get to see them, because when it comes to the subject of ufology, I know you know this more than anybody, is that there's different types of craft. You have nuts and bolts craft with occupants on it. But you also have what I think that I've encountered the most of, which would be, maybe we would call them plasma ships, or lights and objects that seem to be alive. So instead of a ship with occupants, you're seeing entities that are huge, that are made out of light, that are made out of fire, that are made out of plasma, and they're traveling the cosmos. So I think when we catch glimpses of those beings and those entities, they are something very ancient, something very bright, shiny, mesmerizing to even look at, and they impart creativity because they are from the creator. And so that's been my experience. It's been all uh, that of beauty and honor and creativity that is released upon sightings, if you will. And so, yeah, I do think that they are the messengers and the angels from the Bible.
So, at least from that point of view, from the Bible's point of view, as you said, they could be I guess, is it the right word to say mistaken as angels?
Well, it's
No,
when we try to
excuse me, real
limit what an
quick. Just
angel
there
is.
was a point I was going for. What I meant to ask is that, so as we see things differently now, would then at one point do you believe or know whether or not, let's say, those beings on the different ships and angels and spirit in general that we know converse with each other? Excuse me, converse with each other, or and kind of move forward with a certain plan, or are they still very much individualistically kind of fulfilling the one message coming from above, which is God?
Yeah, well, I think that whatever happens is that message from above, which is God. So that would be the sovereignty of how everything works together. Um, as far as identifying different races and the way that they live and what do they do in their leisure time. There's a lot of people who claim to have a lot of experience in inner uh, know that I just have to question um, because a lot of the information is slippery. So to as for, again, leisure time, diets, and people they know that the diet what the Arcturians eat for delicacy and things like that. And I feel like I've been privy to some beautiful information, and but it's not just me. I'm not special. I think anyone can tap into this, whether it's through stargazing, whether it's through meditation, and a life that's devoted to trying to make contact. And a lot of people are doing it now. But as far as getting the juicy details, I don't think we need to know. It's not for humanity to know the juicy details. But I think if we can catch a glimpse of what's going on, of the fact that we're not alone, and the fact that we have friends in high places, um, I don't think we could handle the truth. I really don't, and I do think that we have to be careful with um, fantasy and lore and those things which really muddy the waters with investigators and people who are really doing the research who can come on an interview like this and really just tell you anything and your listeners. But I respect you and your listeners so much so not to do that the, because I know that we're being watched over. I know that they're benevolent. I know that they do have a hand in creation, but to tell you what their cities look like, if there even is such a thing, um, from the information that I do know is that they're not like us as far as flesh and blood, like we would think of gray or there's other civilizations out there. The universe is limitless. There's limitless possibilities. With that being said, this could just be those beings that watch over humanity that are protecting us from other outside invading forces or making sure that we don't destroy ourselves in this evolutionary process. So that's a big part of my work is to just relate it back scripturally and to make sure that we do toe the line with some sort of um, I would say stability or we get caught up in fantasy really quick and people love it. People eat it up and you can say anything and people begin to believe it. So I can't tell you that they have conversations. I can't tell you that they, a lot of this other stuff is going on. there's a huge part of me that's a skeptic of all of this. But I honor that skeptic within me and within everyone out there, because I feel like that is what prompts you for the truth and to have a real encounter with a UFO, with an angel, with an alien, whatever you want to call them. There's many different terms. The idea again of the angel is simply a messenger. Now they wouldn't greet themselves or greet you and introduce themselves as this. If they would say that there was a messenger, they would an angel. They would just say that they were a messenger. Hence, they carry a message. And I think that very much so within their essence, the essence of all spirits carry a message. They carry a code. They carry a what we'll call a vibration. That when you meet them, you feel a certain type of way. There's individuals that we meet that when we're in the presence of them, we feel their message. They are an angel. They carry a message. They have an aura about them, whether it's good or whether it's bad. So the Bible really talks about discerning spirits and being able to discern the intentions and the thoughts of such beings and such people. And so this is what is just a gift that I think we grow in, the spirit of discernment, to be able to tell the fruit of an individual or the fruit of a ET craft, if you will. And never have I had an encounter where I felt threatened. Now there's the fear and things that are within me from watching a lot of those movies when I was a child, for sure, 100%. So there's that reasoning that happens when a craft would come down low or a light would come down really low. And but to say that we have, this privy detail about relation and diet and all of these things, it really raises a red flag for me, because much of that is I don't feel like they share it. I don't feel like they share it with individuals who have made contact. I think that there is an angelic message of take care of yourself, take care of humanity, be present. It really ties back into spirituality. Many of the contactees will tell you that. Many people who have experienced near-death experiences or um, deep trips on plant medicines, very similar experiences, very similar messages that they come back with, that this place is temporary, to be mindful, to be present, and to be a human. And there's things that people claim to know that I would say it's none of our business. But I think that's why a lot of the Christian community will call it demonic, because there are entities that will trade you knowledge for blood. There's entities that will trade you knowledge for a piece of your psyche. And so when you see a lot of the people in ufology and spirituality channeling in these things, and they're getting all this privy information, that's why an outsider, or again somebody who's religious, would definitely see that red flag and immediately say it's something that's demonic.
So, if angels then would be messengers, what would demons be?
Again, messengers as well. So
Just of a
because they
different type
carry
of vibration, as you mentioned, or is
yeah, a different message, a different message. So the message could be, if you live a life that is full of debauchery, drug use, stealing from people, you're a pathological liar. There's character traits that are negative. We would say sinful. They're just not good. You're hurting people. You're deceiving people. You're lying to people. When you align yourself with those types of deeds upon the earth, the vibrational frequencies in the ethers, there's beings that are attracted to you because you resonate at that frequency. And there's certain beings that are attracted to higher frequencies as well. And I do think that that's when we get into ufology and we get into the angelic and having these beautiful encounters. For me and for many people who have encountered what they would call demonic or something unpleasant. It was because of the type of life that they were living on the earth, the kind of deeds that they were doing. Most of these people weren't helping people. They weren't. They didn't have a life devoted to prayer and to devotion and to meditation. They weren't waking up daily with inward reflection about how can I be of assistance? How can I be a better person? It's usually the opposite. Many people with that sin consciousness, and I know that's a weird word, but that consciousness where you wake up on the flip side of that and you wake up and you wonder, how can I get over on somebody? How can I steal? How can I cheat? There's people who wake up that way. And when you do that, your psyche, it trains your psyche, and you begin to attract beings in the ethers that vibrate on that level of frequency. So that when you do perhaps tap in through some type of spiritual means, whether it's drug use, whether it's meditation, it doesn't matter. When you hit rock bottom, you begin to see those beings that you're entertaining on the other side. And that's something that's very scary. That's something that will make people want to change their lives, because they have those deeds in mind. They have those desires in mind. So, but again, I think that they still act as messengers, because it's like, hey, when you do get to see them, if you do, now you can see the results of their activity, but when you meet them, you'll know that they're on that level of vibration. And if you don't change the life that you're living and the things that you're doing, you are opening yourself up to legal ground to these types of beings to have access to your auric field, to have access to your body, and have access to your mind. And so that's their lesson. If you don't stop lying, I'm coming to get you. If you don't stop cheating, I'm going to cheat you. And so we learn hands-on. It's not, we really rarely learn by reading in the book. We have to figure something out. We have to experience it hands-on. If you can show it to us, we'll learn. So these lessons that we learn in this earth school are taught by those teachers. And some of those teachers are hard on us. Some of those teachers have showed us tough love, but they exist and they're created to do that. I don't even think that it makes them bad entities or bad beings. It's how they were created. They have a beautiful job and a role to play in this earth school, in this realm. And again, that's for the lower level demonic stuff, if you open yourself up. But if you begin to do the other things, doing good deeds and alms and taking care of the widows and the orphans, many things that all of the religions beg you to do. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, help people. And once you begin to do these things, even without being told, it's just in your nature that you've chosen that path or that higher road. Then you begin to open up yourself for assistance from these higher beings. And if you do tap in through meditation, prayer, stargazing, you begin to see some things that you are entertaining in the spirit world. They'll pop in and say hello if you ask for it, if you can handle it, those type of things. And so that's been my story. And you know, many others who talk about this almost a spiritual warfare. But I don't even think that they're fighting each other. I don't think the angels and the demons, or the higher and lower, are fighting each other. I think they're fighting for dominance of the human psyche, of the human soul, and the human spirit. And that's their reward. You know, now where they come from, how they got here, I do think it is sovereign. And there's a lot of different legend. There's a lot of different lore of who these beings are. But on top of that, there's so much nuance. There's so many different types of beings within there. So to just say that there's only angels or higher beings, you also have to understand that there's lower level entities, but there's also neutral beings. There's beings that are just here to clean up. There's beings that push and pull the tides of the ocean, that are over the solar systems and constellations and so much more. And for us to just lump these things into we'll say angels and demons. And for other people, let's throw ufology in there, aliens, like all of them are aliens. No, there's so many in between of rankings and different names and different types of angels, even as it's concerned biblically. Um, Now, that's not to say that, again, there's not these other, life on Mars and civilization that are living a similar life to us. I don't know. I'm not privy with that information. Um, but the information I do is definitely spiritual, and much of what you see, and, and whether it's video or whether it's, again, through stargazing, you find out that these beings are not made of matter. Again, that they're made out of fire, that they're made out of plasma. And this goes back to all the religious holy texts. It talks about them being made out of the fire of God. But as they wish, they can shapeshift and they can come down here and take upon any image that they want, that they have the ability to shapeshift and to deliver and carry a message. The book of Enoch really goes into detail about that, as well as that is reiterated within the book of Psalms and the book of Hebrews, that say that the Lord God maketh his ministering spirits, his holy angels, as a flame of fire. But as they wish, they can take upon the appearance of men and come down here and walk amongst men. Hence the scripture saying that be careful when you entertain strangers, because some of you have entertained angels unaware.
So I wanted to ask if you could maybe then just to give a more of a, I don't know if practical is the right word, but let's say in the experiences you were having that made you turn the page, so to say, in 2000, can you give a detailed, I guess, a process, if you will, about what was happening to you? You know, you were talking about vibrations earlier and encounters and different things. Whatever was happening, whatever made that shift for you, can you maybe go into that to where it might give just a much better,
For sure.
I guess much better explanation of how the interactions, or even just if it wasn't a physical or anything that you could immediately interact with, however the process happened for you,
Yeah,
to just simply lay it out.
for sure. So with the timeline, in 1998, um, I had a friend who was always inviting me to church. I didn't want to go because I was into occultic practices back in 1998, and just a rebellious teenager. He would invite me to prayer meetings. I didn't want to go, but he would be consistent. He would always invite me, and I never wanted to go. But then he told me this one time, he invited me to a prayer meeting. I told him no. He says, "Well, I want you to come to this one because there's going to be a prophet there." So I said, "Well, what's a prophet?" He said, "A prophet is kind of like a Christian psychic, and they know things about people. God tells them things about you when they look at you." And for me, as somebody who was into those kind of things, as supernatural as a child, I was like, "Sure, this sounds cool. Yeah, I'm coming." So I ended up going to that prayer meeting in 1998, and I when we was there, they had this beautiful worship music on, beautiful tones and people singing, and it was in somebody's apartment. And I would see people with their eyes closed and their hands raised, and they were just weeping and crying. Like they were sitting in this living room with me, but they were in a different realm. Like they were tapped into something, and it was so peaceful in that place. And so, this one gentleman come and sat down next to me on the couch, and he said, "Hey, Derek, would you like to ask Jesus to forgive you of your sins?" And I didn't want him not to, right? I didn't want Jesus not to forgive me. So I said, "Yeah, I'd like that. I'd like him to forgive me." He said, "I want you to pray this prayer with me." And so he just led me in what they call the sinner's prayer, and acknowledging the work that he did on the cross. "I ask you to forgive me, cleanse me from all the unrighteousness and the wrong that I've ever done. I want to make you the Lord of my life." And I prayed this prayer, and I meant it when he led me. And as I prayed that prayer, I began to weep. I began to break and begin to shake and tremble. And I felt this immense, what felt like fire, enter me from the top of my head and just move throughout my entire being. and deep down into my stomach and my spirit, and I felt like it was burning me up. And it was so euphoric and so beautiful, but it was scary at the same time. But it was so refreshing, and I felt like it cleansed me and burned out all the wrong that I had ever done, every lie that I had ever told, everything that I ever stolen, all the things that I'd done in secret that I was ashamed of. Like, it instantly deleted it. It took it away from me. And that was in 1998, and I began to go to church and be a part of that Christian experience for several months until I started going to school. Then when I started going back to school, I fell into the wrong crowd and eventually got away from Christianity, quit going to church, and really got into the occult even darker. So as I was dabbling with it as an early teen, once I got into Christianity and fell away from it, I began to rebel from that light and from Christianity and those things. And so I ended up meeting a witch. He was a warlock who had so many stories about the spirit world and experiences and encounters, and we would just pick his brain for hours about how he would make contact and philosophies and things like that. He would teach us little spells and things to do on people, and I was pretty much like a pupil of his. At least I felt that way, and that just really got me even more into the occult of like we know somebody who we can ask questions to. And so we just started finding all of these books and getting into the Necronomicon as a teenager, getting into the Satanic Bible and Wicca and really mixing it all together. Like I didn't care what it was because I understood that there was something real about spirituality, about Christianity. So maybe this other side's real too. So I began to explore and seek into that for maybe 2 years, so much so until it all came to a head after an experience that I had. I ended up moving away from Alabama to Louisiana, so I was about 2.5 hours away from most of my friends, and I was living in the country with my mom and my brother. And for my birthday, my mom took me and dropped me off in Alabama to be with my girlfriend and with my friends for the weekends. Dropped me off on Friday, was going to come pick me up Sunday, take me back home. My cousin was with me, and he was going to go spend the summer with me. Um, we went and stayed with one friend, and whenever we stayed with him, we, we stayed one night, and I had a big duffel bag. And when we left, I took all of his belongings that I wanted. I took video games and T-shirts and CDs and those things that a teenager would steal. And I took them and I put them in that duffel bag and I told him bye. And I went and stayed with another friend Saturday night. Saturday night stayed with another friend and did the same thing to him. Took all of his CDs when we left, T-shirts, video games. I mean, I had a duffel bag full of stuff because my mom was going to come get me the next night, bring me back to Louisiana in the country, and I would have all of this stuff. Go stay with another friend. She's supposed to come that Sunday night, and she don't show up. Well, somebody lets me crash on the couch, and my mom says that she's having car problems in Louisiana, and it's going to be another day. So she'll come get me Monday night. So we end up finding a place to stay. One night I stayed with my girlfriend. I stayed in her tree house because we were teenagers. We snuck in there, and we had to find another place to stay. Well, all the while we're hanging out at the Warlock's house too, and there's huge parties over there. All these teenagers, all these people. I stay with him one night, and my mom puts it off again. Hey, the car's still in the shop. I'll be there Tuesday. Okay, fine, cool. I get to stay longer. But I got all these belongings I've been stealing. I ended up stealing something from the Warlock as well. I stole a video game, Dungeons and Dragons video game from him. And I put it across the street in my duffel bag that was hidden in another friend's closet. I put some clothes on top of it. So when my mom finally came, I run across the street, I grab the bag, and we're gone. Make way, like the good little thief that I was. And she still didn't show up. And eventually, we didn't have nowhere to stay, so we were going to stay with the Warlock again. So we're over at his house, me and my cousin, and there had this big party going on. And there's just people everywhere, a bunch of teenagers there. They're drinking and hanging out. And we were sitting inside, and this night there was a bunch of people there that I've never seen before. a lot of older guys. So we got a bunch of teenagers, but then you got all of these dudes in their 40s and 50s and older, and they're all wearing black, and they're sitting with the warlock, and they're all in the living room sitting down, and me and my cousin are sitting across from them. Somebody lights up a joint. We're at a party, and there's girls everywhere, and they're getting ready to smoke, and somebody walks through the front door, and it's another friend who has the video game that I stole from the warlock. So he walks in with the video game, and he walks over across from me and hands it to the warlock. And he says, "Okay, thank you." And friend walks off, didn't say nothing to me, and they all look at each other, all the warlocks and witches, and they shake their heads. Okay, one at a time. Each one of them gets up, stands up, walks to the back of the house. One, two, three. I think it was five of them. I'm freaking out. These not only are these guys high level warlocks, but they're also into gang activity, like what's called the insane gangster disciples. It's a mixture of folk and mysticism. They practice reading the Bible upside down. You have to restate lore, and it's just really dark stuff that they're all in, and most of those kids were in on it. So I didn't know if we were going to get tied up. I don't know if we're going to get beat up. We're going to get jumped because they're all in gang activity. So all the warlocks walk to the back. I whispered to my cousin, "Hey, we got to get out of here, man." "What? What's going on?" I said, "No, we got to go. He just brought the video game inside that I stole." "Oh man, it's okay. They just lit a joint. We're about to smoke a joint." "No, we got to go. You don't understand who these people are, man." I get up, I say, "Go now." So we get up and walk outside, and I tell them, and we're like, "Oh man." So there's a guy hanging out by his car. He's in his car talking to some girls, some random guy outside. There's people everywhere. And I said, "Hey man, can you give us a ride right down the road? I really need to get out of here. It's an emergency." Didn't know him. He said, "Sure, man, hop in." So we get in the car with this guy. He brings us just 3 miles down the road, if that, to my girlfriend's house, and he drops us off down the road because we're going to try to make a run for it for her treehouse and have another night's rest until my mom shows up in her treehouse. So we go to the edge of the driveway and we get ready to make a beeline for the treehouse, but we're waiting because there's a light in the yard, and the light's just moving through the yard. And I'm like, well, it seems like that's her dad with the flashlight just walking through the yard. But I tell you, we watched that light anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes until the sun started just going down a little bit, and the light just went away. It's almost like it hypnotized us or something. Now that I look back on it, so we walk around the edge of the property, and there's this big open field. And we walk around to the edge of the field, and we're getting ready to make that run for the treehouse. And out of nowhere, what I explained looked like a 8 foot tall camel appeared out of thin air. It was darker than the blackest of night. It appeared. It's about 8 foot tall, camel, a horse. It runs by me and my cousin, knocks us both to the ground and screams, and then dissipates into the ethers right when it passed us up. We get up off the ground, freaking out. What was that? We run to the treehouse, and that experience changed me. That was one of the pivotal moments of my life of being attacked or whatever that thing was, in my studies as a teenager who was into the occult, and I wanted that. Well, what was it? Um, I ended up talking to the warlock several months later. I ended up going back to Louisiana, um, and doing my seances and all that. But I go back to Alabama and talk to the warlock, and I apologize. "Hey man, I'm sorry for for stealing from you, and I didn't mean to do it. I hope you forgive me." He's like, "Yeah, I know you stole it. They already told me." I said, "Well, listen, what was it?" Because something formed out of thin air and scared us and knocked us down. What was it? He started laughing. He said, "Well, I had a protection spell upon my belongings, and it was a being that was summoned, an elemental, that anyone who would steal from me or cause me harm, that the being would go out and it would get my belongings back, and it would attack the individuals that was trying to harm me or steal from me. So he implanted the idea of the elementals, and he's working with these beings out of that he summoned out of thin air, out of the ethers. And again, that changed me, because you would think that that would scare somebody, say, hey, stay away from this stuff. It's nothing to play with, you know. But I went back to Louisiana after that, and I've been begin to go deeper, because I wanted to have that ability. I wanted to be able to work with magic and work with demons, that they would do my bidding. I got enemies too. I got people trying to harm me. Maybe I can summon an entity to go out and do them harm. And so I began to do every seance, every meditation, every conjuring by myself, and with groups of people. And I would try to do them all. And I'm reading all the books. I'm trying to figure out which one of these books is real. Is it Wicca? Is it the Satanic Bible? There's beings that you summon in the Satanic Bible. Is it angel magic? You know, I'm trying to do them all, and none of them worked. You know, I'm doing all of them over several weeks, and just a few months. And my girlfriend ended up moving with me in Louisiana. And it wasn't until none of those meditations worked, none of those conjurings worked, until they all worked at the same time. And so that's when we go back to the beginning of this episode, where I talk about being pulled into trances, sitting on the couch mid conversation, something pulls me into another realm and tries to communicate with me. I can't understand it. It's in an ancient language, and it's seven of them trying to talk. They're flying. It's just insane. It's insanity to try to make sense. And it's like they're almost having fun with toying with me and messing with me. Not only did I just go into this trance, but my body turns pale. I can't breathe. My heart's racing, and I'm in this trance. And my girlfriend's there. Are you okay? What's going on? And I'm not breathing. And finally, I sucked back in my body. What was that? And it kept happening. It only took a few days, but when it started, my health started to deteriorate. I started coughing up blood. I started hearing voices. I started seeing things out of the corner of my eye. We would go into public, and I would try to order fast food at McDonald's or something like that. And I couldn't look people in their eyes, because every time I looked at them, there was like this heightened sense of like ESP, and I knew things about them, and I knew they knew things about me. And it was this shame and stuff, that it was like something out of a movie. Every store we went in, I felt like everybody in the entire store was looking at me. It was straight paranoid schizophrenia that came upon me. And I would watch things on television, and I would experience it in my mind, in my life. Every disease that I heard, if someone said a disease, I immediately believed 100% that I had it and I was going to die. Changing the channels on television and hearing about somebody said they had testicular cancer, I remember that. Boom, it just hit my head. Wow, you got it. You're going to die. Oh man, you got brain cancer. And it wasn't something that you can get out of your head. It was like I had no control over these thoughts. Like these beings were implanting thoughts into my mind. So when all of that came to a head, and I'm getting pulled in these trances, I'm coughing up blood, and I'm malnourished, and I'm not eating. It's very bad. That's when I hit rock bottom, and I knew that a few years before, I had been a Christian. I remember being at that prayer meeting, and that bliss and that beauty that those people were experiencing, and the beauty and bliss that I experienced when that fire entered my body and comforted me and changed me and helped me and healed me. And I wanted that back, because whatever that was, I was on the opposite spectrum of the lowest that you can go on the totem pole. At least that's what I felt like. And after having one rough night, one episode, I ended up getting my girlfriend. I said, I need you to pray with me. Just pray for me, because I feel insanity in my mind, in my spirit, in my body. And I'm going to have to go to an insane asylum. I'm going to go to a psychiatric ward, and they're going to put me on medication. Like I can't, if I go tell people what I'm experiencing, it's over. So she prayed with me. She didn't really believe in God, but she prayed that I would just feel better in my body. And the next day I woke up, I felt a lot better. I went to our altar and threw everything off. All of the stuff that was on the altars, all of the posters and the bands and paraphernalia we had to do rituals and seance and cutting and anything that had anything to do with anything dark. Threw everything away, all of our books, just getting rid of all kinds of stuff, um, finding ways to get rid of it. And my girlfriend, she wakes up, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm done. I'm done. I can't do it anymore. I got to get my life back right with God. I cannot." And so she's panicking. I'm throwing away all of our music and T-shirts and stuff. And she's like, "What am I supposed to do?" I was like, "Listen, you can follow God with me. You can dedicate your life back to. You can dedicate your life to God and do it with me, or you can go home and go live with your parents again. I don't care. I'm done. I'm not gonna make it if I don't." And she's like, "Well, I don't believe in God. I don't believe in Jesus. What do you want me to believe in something that I don't believe in?" I said, "Listen, if we can believe in the gods and the goddesses and the fairies and the moon creatures and Pan and all of these idols, if we can believe in that, we can believe in Jesus. I said, give it a week. And if our lives isn't 100% better within a week, then I'll go back and worship anything you want me to worship with bells and whistles on, just because I knew it was real. The other stuff was questionable. I didn't know, but that encounter that I had in '98, I knew that that was real and tangible because I took it with me. And so we dedicated our lives to following God and following Christ. Back then, again, it was September 7th of 2000, and we'd been on that path ever since. And again, I was a Christian minister. I was a Christian hip hop artist for many years until many of those things came full circle, and I began to see the righteous, beautiful part of it. That it wasn't all this base, demonic, lower level, lower entry stuff. That there was a beauty and a spirituality that existed even within the Bible. Because again, I approached this from that perspective, and I began to see my story in that, and I began to see the things that the disciples did and Christ did, and it really took my experiences to the next level. So when all of that became real for me is when everything came to a head. And so I ended up getting in the phone book back then and calling 15 churches. And I left messages on all the answer machines and says, "Hey, I'm demon possessed. I need somebody to pray with me. I need somebody to call me back. I think I got demons." Called about 15 churches. One church called me back, and the pastor ended up coming to meet with me and praying for me at my home, and ended up coming to pick us up and bring us back and forth to church. And that's when everything changed for me, from being in that lower level, dark, demonic side. And I knew it was real. I knew both sides were real. I know that the lower level, confusing, dark entities exist, the poltergeists, the ones that want to play tricks on your mind and leech off of your energy and those things. And I also knew that the beauty of the bliss of that, what we'll call the Holy Spirit, existed as well, because that was one of the first experiences that I had back in 1998.
Wow, TruthSeekah, that's quite an experience. Thank you very much for sharing that. So basically, after all of that you've been through, what was the first thing that you kind of started to make these other connections that, like you said, it's not all negative in that way, that there was a I guess purpose for everything, and that
Yeah.
if you just, I guess, change your perspective, the way you look at it, that you change, I guess it changes itself. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Because coming from, again, from the Christian perspective, like, it's a very spiritual tradition. We have to look at Christianity today, as far as some of the practices that they continue to do, which are very ancient practices: speaking in tongues, rhythmic dancing, singing, chanting, clapping, holding their hands up as to receive from a higher power. So there's really this connection there. So that was something that we practiced, and we believed in demons. We believed in angels, but for some reason we felt like we had more access to the demons than the angels. Everyone had a story about a demon. Not many people had stories about angels, and so that was just kind of common ground. So I would share my story in churches and youth groups and through my music as a Christian evangelist. But I would say it started to go deeper when I would kind of separate myself and pray and fast. and ask for deeper encounters with God. More encounters like that, which I had when I first started, and we had a lot. That experience of me feeling that fire come upon me and within me and cleanse me out, like we had the ability to lay hands on people and have them to receive it too. So it was now transferable. So it wasn't that it was just this one time thing. We could get people to pray and who wanted uh, to change their life or wanted an encounter with God or wanted to get their life right, and they would receive that gift and that promise of the Holy Spirit. And that became real. That became something powerful. And then we read about it in the Bible. Like, wow, they did this too. So, those are some little things. Casting out demons, that's in the Bible. Getting filled with the Holy Spirit, that's in the Bible. And then we keep reading, and there was angelic encounters that were in the Bible, but we didn't see much of those. So me just withdrawing myself, I began to pray and fast and ask for it, and ask God to give me revelation from heaven, so that I could teach and so that I could share. And I feel like I ended up getting it, but it didn't come the way that I thought. Most of it was about books that were taken out of the Bible. There was things that introduced me to the zodiac in the Bible, the constellations, the Mazzaroth, and these things that have been under our noses the whole time within Christendom, but nobody teaches on them. We're told that they're demonic, but again, all of these things were in the Bible. So for me, it really took me having to read it and find it in those scriptures and then experience it. Like once I read it and had some kind of grid that, okay, this may not be demonic, um, then I can go out and experience it. So ufology was one of it. It was connecting ufology to the angels. Now, I started off as a Christian researching ufology under all of the big Christian ufologists who, hands down, across the board, say that it's demonic. And I studied that for several months until I began to listen maybe to Coast AM and listen to a lot of George Norrie and some of the people he interviewed. And I felt like many of those Christians had a bias that they approach the subject with, yeah, they're demonic. Now what? And that's built on top of the fact that they're demonic. But many of the other people who I resonated with that weren't on Christian interviews, they were on secular stuff like Coast to Coast and podcasts like these. I began to listen to them, and I heard stuff that ended up resonating with me more, because I didn't feel like it was biased. There was a teacher who I found early on, a researcher by the name of Patrick Cook, who has BibleUFO.net, and it was full of what I was looking for, of tying those scriptures in about UFOs and about aliens and the paranormal to the Bible. So this was thousands and thousands of web pages about the supernatural, ufology, and all of that within the Bible. But he differed because he was the only one that brought to the table from a Christian perspective that these could be the angels from the scriptures. And he had all of the proof with it, not just saying it, but let me teach you and show you. So me having to read it and see it for myself, which was huge for me. And I felt like I was being led down that path. And also, there was a video that I found early on by a guy by the name of Prophet Yahweh, who was interviewed by a news channel and ended up claiming that he could summon UFOs on command with the use of the Hebrew version of the Holy Bible. And when I heard this, I was like, oh, I gotta check this out. The guy summoning UFOs. What's this? I watched the video. He goes into an open field. He's got news crews with him. He lifts his hands up to the sky and he says, "Oh Yahweh, so that these people don't think that I'm crazy, show me one of your chariots. Show me one of your messengers of light, so that these people may see and that they may know and they may believe." And so then they pan up and they look around. And finally, they see an orb in the sky, this light during the day that's reflecting the light from the sun. It seems like something picks up on camera. And all of the news reporters, it startles them. Wow, it really worked. And he's like, hallelujah, Yahweh, bless you, Yahweh. Thank you for the sightings. Thank you for this encounter. And he's thanking God for it. And all of the research and study that I was doing within the scriptures, and then to see that video And then he's talking about the chariots of fire, the chariots, which are the vehicles in the Holy Bible. The chariots of fire, the cloud, appear as a cloud by day and a fire by night. So when I seen that, then things begin to really shift for me, because I begin to go out by myself and spend hours and hours and hours under the stars, the morning sky, the night sky, anytime that I could, even a cloudy night where you couldn't see anything. I'm trying to go out there and ask for a sighting. I'm trying to facilitate something similar to what I seen in that video. And then I would find other people's work. James Gilliland from East Seti Ranch, and he had videos, and he was doing it. And Dr. Stephen Greer with the CE5 initiative. Oh, wow, CE5, what's this? Yeah, we're doing something similar. We're going out and making contact with our space brothers. And then it started happening for me. I began to go out, lift my hands, and ask for a sighting. And it would take hours, days, but finally something happened, something popped. And I began to make contact, and with beautiful, benevolent energies that I would call the angels. I would be specific with it. I would ask God, I would ask Yahweh, much like Prophet Yahweh did, to see a sighting, the cherubim, the seraphim. And I began to do word studies. What are these things? And they're fire. They're the beings that are made out of fire that are in the Bible. And literally, seraphim means the fiery serpents, who the keepers of God's knowledge, and they look like fire. And then we read Enoch and we read the Bible, and then stuff starts making sense. And I begin to see things that just blew my mind. I begin to see portals open up, and beings traveling in and out of them and going into stars, and lights flying across the sky really fast and then stopping on a dime. Lights flying across the sky, touching a star, what seemed to be a star, but they were trading spaces with it. There was something that was parked there that we thought was a star, and a ship or whatever this light was comes and takes over and mans its post, and then it flies off. I've seen fleets of what we'll call UFOs, or these beings in the sky. And so once you start having those encounters, and then you find scriptures to back it up, because for me, as long as it was in the Bible, like, I'm cool with it. As long as I can see it, then I know that they're good guys, because I have a history of trying to contact entities and ended up getting the lower level bad guys that were out there, and stuff exists for sure. So I understood that the life that I was living, and trying my best, and I knew my connection with what I would call God, and eventually those things started happening, and I began to see things that were similar to all of those videos that I had watched and the things that I had wanted to see, and it changed everything. It changed everything for me. It became real. Those scriptures became real about them traveling. Scriptures about them traveling back and forth from heaven to earth and carrying messages and all of that. And then I feel like I got to see it, and I began to put it in my music. I began to write rap songs, spiritual hip hop songs about those encounters, the feelings, the euphoria, how to repeat it, and all of that. And it really took my spirituality to the next level. I feel like it made me a better person. There was an awe and a wonder and a majesty I feel like was imparted to me. But when those things shifted was definitely when all of that stuff started happening for me, early on. And that was around 2010, 11, 12, in those years that I took all of this very seriously, and was seeing so many bizarre things. And people would say, be careful. Could be demons, man. You could get abducted. You could go out there, ask for a sighting, and they come and kidnap you and take you off world, and you're gone. So there's that fear they're trying to implant. But then I would read scriptures. There's a scripture on like prayer. It says that if you ask your heavenly Father for a fish, he's not going to give you a serpent. He's not going to give you a snake. If you ask your heavenly Father for a loaf of bread, he's not going to give you a stone and play a trick on you. So the analogy there for me with this prayer is like, if I, with a pure heart and pure motives, ask God, the creator of all things, whatever that is, for an encounter with one of his angels, just let me see him. Let him fly by and let me just catch a glimpse. And I took that with me, that there was no fear. That perfect love casts out all fear. And if I asked for an angel, a demon wouldn't show up in its disguise, doesn't it? It doesn't work that way. And so again, that's when everything changed for me, and everything in my life took a turn for the better. But it was definitely an awakening. There was a process, but um, talk about these big things, these big monumental moments in my life. But that was for sure one of the biggest as well.
You know, it's interesting. You mentioned that time period of 2010, 11, and 12, not just for myself, but several other people that I've talked to privately. You know, that was kind of those big years where big things were happening. So it's interesting that just to also hear you say that. I have actually several things I want to ask you about, and I wish I need to start getting more in the habit of keeping a pen and paper here so I can write it down real quick. I can't use any of this electronics more efficiently. So just to clarify something, just out of curiosity, because it was a very interesting, story as you were telling it. Whatever happened with the girlfriend? Because you said you asked her to give her that week, and if you can just very shortly go into that, and I have some other questions for you.
Yeah. Well, we've been happily married for 20 years. And yeah, she ended up having an encounter. She made that decision to say, okay, I'm gonna give it a shot. And very interestingly, I said, let's give it a week. And so we had a lot of crazy things going on in our life, right? If you're in that realm, um, we had a lot of prayer requests. I'll say that. So we ended up writing. We heard this: write your prayer requests down, make them known unto God. And so pulled out a notebook and we wrote 7 things down, I think it was, that we needed. And it was specific things to us. We wanted to relocate back to Alabama. We wanted new Christian friends because we went out and tried to hang out with the same people. And we picked up a guy and he got in the back seat and he's fidgeting around. He pulls out a knife. He's got a steak knife and he pulls it out of his pants. And I'm like, hey, what are you doing with that? Oh, I can't trust anybody, man. I can't trust nobody. Can't trust anybody. I said, okay. So we hang out for a little bit. But like, hey, we gotta take this guy home. Like, I don't feel comfortable anymore around him. So we asked to be relocated back to Alabama. We asked for Christian friends. We asked for my wife to have a job in Alabama. We asked for our car to be fixed. Our car was, as soon as you crank it, the RPMs go up to like 80 miles an hour. So you had to hold the brake. The car was jacked. We took it to repairmen. They didn't know what's wrong with it. My granny tried to pay for it, didn't help us, and nothing would work. And so we had all of these prayers that we asked for, and for about a week, we were going to church there in Louisiana and getting plugged in with those guys, going to Bible study and stuff. But I'll tell you what, for me, it was still hard. Like I was still in between, even though like there was so much peace that came to me instantly. It was a hard road. It wasn't, hey, everything's good. It
There's still
was that,
work.
but there was so much work to be done. My mind was trained a certain way, to be paranoid and to be suspicious and to hear things while people are talking and I'm hearing a different conversation. It was, so it was a long, long process. But anyway, we prayed for those things and miraculously, I believe that God answered every single one of them. But we wanted to relocate back to Alabama, but we didn't even have gas money to get there. And the car was messed up. It probably wouldn't even make it. So my girlfriend at the time, talks to her um, grandmother and says, hey, we want to come visit and want to get mom and dad to look at the car. Maybe they can know what's wrong with it and all this. And we just want to come see y'all. We don't have the money. And she said, Aaron, look under the spare tire and in the little cubby compartment in the trunk, there's money in there. I put, it was $20, which $20 was a tank of gas back then. There's $20 in there, and that'll fill your car up for you to get home. Just I put that there just in case you ever needed to get home, you would have gas money. So before any of this happened, her grandmother, who's a God-fearing lady, synchronistically, I believe, put that there. So boom, there's our gas money. So now we don't have to look for money. We don't have to siphon gas or nothing. We're like, okay, let's go. So now we got to try to get the car back. So we're driving on the interstate, and um, the car's doing 80, and you got to ride the brake if it tries to go over, and you going through town and traffic, get on the interstate as quick as you can, but we made it. We made it back. So we ended up getting there, and we ended up going to my old church, and we go to the church, and we get plugged in, and there's a bunch of young people there who wanted to hang out with us. And so we ended up having all these Christian friends, like 15 friends out of nowhere who we hung out with every day, and they were all Christians, and we'd have prayer meetings and stuff while we were in town in Alabama visiting. My wife prayed for this job. She walks into her old job just to say, hey, just to see everybody, because it's been several months. She's been in Louisiana. She walks into the front door to go see them and surprise them. And as soon as they lay eyes on her, her old boss says, hey, Aaron, you want your old job back? Uh, yeah, actually, I do. Okay, you start tomorrow. It's like, what? Hey, good to see you. It's been a while. So she walks in and magically walks right back into that job that was provision. And her mom and dad end up paying for the car to be fixed, and they knew what was wrong with it. And they ended up, because we weren't married at the time, they weren't going to let us stay together in their home. So they ended up renting us a hotel for just a couple days. And they said, you know what? If you guys want to stay longer till the car gets all the way fixed, we'll let you borrow our truck, and we'll rent, or we'll buy a little camper trailer for you guys to stay in while you're here. So like we just had all of these things that we asked for, we prayed for, and I feel like God was showing Himself to me and to my wife, who all of this was brand new. She hadn't had those encounters that I had early on, and it was something that built her faith to know that, hey, somebody or something's listening when we talk, when we align ourselves to do right and to get on this straight and narrow path, and when we ask for things that it shall be given unto you. And we felt loved, and then she ended up having an encounter too with the Holy Spirit like I did. And we were sitting at home watching preaching on TV. It was Rod Parsley back in 2000, and they were having like this praise-a-thon kind of thing, old-fashioned church service on TV kind of thing. And they began to play the music and begin to the tambourines and stuff, and we just felt this. We were getting into it in this little unction, and we just got up and started dancing in our living room, and it was this beautiful joy that filled the room, and it was a supernatural encounter that we both got to experience together. And that was her first time tangibly feeling the presence of love, the presence of the Holy Spirit. And so all of those things came to a head to for us to be where we are today. But it was those foundational things that I think were pivotal and pillars in our life and in our faith.
That's beautiful. I'm glad it worked out in that way, and just makes that much more of a richer life.
Yeah.
There's Well, I was thinking if you're okay with it, for us to then go into Q&A. But before we do that, I have just some quick announcement to everyone, and then another question that will then of you else a chance to send in the questions to you. What do you think? Would you be up for that now?
I'm down, brother.
Okay,
Yeah.
good deal. So we're going to go into questions here very soon. I will then give you some time to either log into Telegram to ask the question yourself over voice, or please use Shift 8 or so 3 stars and then a question after, so it pops out easier in the chat for me. And also anything I could basically anything that TruthSeekah offers is all in description below. Those that watch UFO Hub often know that. For those that don't, under every video, whether it would be the channel, the websites, anything else about TruthSeekah is in the description, so please check it out. And so the question I have for you was regarding your book, and one of the forwards was Jordan Maxwell. I meant to ask you earlier when you were talking about listening to other people. Then there's also basically a song you also recorded, and it's up on your channel as well, that has one of some of the lyrics as Jordan Maxwell is talking. Can you maybe just talk a little bit about maybe if there is such a if I would assume that Jordan Maxwell was an influence on you in some way as well. If you could speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I was blessed to have him be able to write the forward to my book, and he means a lot to me. Jordan Maxwell means a lot to me. Again, early on that research, I found his work early on, and Project Camelot and those guys, and his interviews on there, then his lectures, and he would approach the Bible from a different perspective. He would give you a different lens, and a lot of it was hard to chew, especially coming from a religious background. But so he had so many beautiful things that he brought to the table. Again, with the Mazzaroth and with the zodiac in the Bible and astrology and stuff. So I reached out. I started my own podcast after listening to hours and hours and hours of lectures and hours of radio shows and coast to coast and so many interviews with people. I had my own questions because I would listen to George Norrie, who I have so much respect for, so much love for, but then somebody would say something and then they would change the subject. And I'm like, you got to ask him about that. Like, what did the alien look like? What did the presence look like? Because I've seen something similar and I'm trying to make sense of it, so I had, as a listener, I have had all these questions, so I started my own radio show back in the day. We didn't call them podcasts, but this was in 2010. And I ended up having Jordan Maxwell on a few years later, listening to all of his stuff, and quite literally the people that I heard on Coast to Coast that I had questions for, I would write down questions while listening to Coast to Coast. And then I would say, hey, will you come on my show? I'd love to interview you. And they'll say, sure. They'll come on. Like, wow, this guy, Jordan Maxwell, just said yes to me. And so I got to have him on and just pick his brain for like 2 hours. And we built a relationship after that. And he would talk to me off camera, and share things with me and encourage me. And I got to still, roll questions off of him that I had that were hard, and trying to make sense of things. And it wasn't easy making that shift from a regular Christian minister to one who's going to now talk about ufology, one who's now going to talk about meditation and the third eye and all of these things that I talk about, hidden mysteries within the Bible. Because those people were, they now saw me as an enemy. Now I'm talking about astrology and Orion in the Bible and the Pleiades and all of these starships in the Bible and beings that we can contact, and the ancestors are making contact in the Bible. But so it was very hard for me to really embrace. I had to pick one, and it was like, you can't do both. Part of me, it was familiar to remain a Christian minister, to remain a Christian rapper. There was money in it. There was, so many friends. And but if I go in this route, they're going to give up on me, and they did. They really did. And so that was very hard on me. And so to have somebody like Jordan Maxwell in my life that I could tell him those things to, and he just speak clarity to me, because I was going back and forth every day about what the future held and what ministry looked like now, because I'm a minister, I'm a Christian. And to have people tell me that I'm not, and people call me a Satanist, they say I went back to the same stuff I came out of, making pacts with demons, and they think I'm still doing that. Much of the terminology is very similar, portals and beings, energy, and so all of those people who once embraced me now forsook me. And my faith and my devotion to God and to Christ never changed. It actually got deeper. But to have all of those people forsake me, it was very hard to get clear. And I went back and forth for months, maybe even years, until I got fully clear on who I was and what that looked like. And I didn't have to fit into any boxes, but the whole time Jordan Maxwell was there, and he just spoke into my life. And I remember at a pivotal moment of me thinking like, yeah, I'm just gonna maybe do the Christian thing and just not talk about any of this stuff. And I used to beg God to take it away from me, like just in case it is demonic. Like, did you open up another door? And the passions would never leave. They became more intense, and then there would be confirmation and things in the Bible, and it just got more intense. And I knew God was calling me down this path. And all the while, Jordan Maxwell was like, listen, you're trying to help people. You're following your truth. You're following your bliss. And these people are calling you a devil worshiper. And he would just speak sense into me. So I'm thankful for his work, and I've been able to interview him, and just I feel like I'm a friend. We're friends, you know. Um, I'm so thankful that he endorses my work, and I want to endorse his. I want to endorse. I want to put his name on it. I want to sample his lectures and turn people on to everything that inspired me, and give credit where credit is due, so that I don't act like I came up with any of this stuff. Maybe, even there obviously you put your own spin on it and there's new revelation, but a lot of people are taking credit for a lot of these guys' hard work who stuck their neck out there when it wasn't popular, and then now they opened up for a realm for me and you to freely talk about this stuff and be able to do this and the way that we do it in such a level. So Jordan Maxwell means the world to me. He's a good friend.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for speaking to that. So, as we have questions coming in, so first one, I had Crypto Meter raise his hand. So, Crypto, you're unmuted. Unmute yourself, and you should be able to ask a question.
Howdy, TruthSeekah. I had a question. You kind of already started to answer it, and I was really glad to hear that. I think praying with someone to make sure that you are clean. I call it like a delousing. Just kind of making sure everything's gone. Maybe from something that happened in the past, and but I kind of feel like I'm being called to lay on a table for a chakra cleansing for double checking. But anything else you recommend for cleaning up body wise?
Thanks for the question, Crypto.
Yeah, man. Thank you for the question, and thank you for being a member in this tribe, in this community. I listen to this podcast a lot, and I hear you call in and ask questions and chime in. So thank you for that too. Just know that God has a plan for you, man. Beautiful work for you to do, and that only you can do. That's the thing to get clear on, is that only you can do. And I had to get clear on that with my story, that it's different. It's not going to look like everybody else. It may look a little bit like this and a little bit like that. So I just want to impart that to you to get clear on who you are, and don't think that it has to fit in any box, and whatever you bring to the table and do it. So yeah, to check the motives. It is a daily thing. And I do think that spirituality and mindfulness and chakra clearings and cleansings and meditations, all of that really helps us to be in touch with our spirit. And it's the Holy Spirit that speaks within, from the heart space, that still small voice, that'll let us know when we're trying our best and we're trying to get into alignment. It's a process. And so enjoy the process. And as layers of an onion, when you get past one thing and you let it go, and you make peace with your past, you make peace with your parents, you make peace with your enemies, that's how you release. And those cords of attachment just come out of you. They just come out of you. More meditation, more prayer, more devotion, more contemplation, and it will illuminate with the light of God more areas in your life that you didn't see before. So it's like if you have a rock, and you pick that rock up and there's a bunch of beetles and bugs and creeping things under it, and they all scurry off because they were exposed by the light. The light, if the scripture says, if you walk in the light, that there will be no darkness within you. So having your deeds open before God, before the consciousness that is connects all of us, that created all of us, that is a friend and that will commune and wants good for you. Once you understand that, you get into this dialogue with the creator of everything, of the demons, of the angels, of the beetles, of me. It's created everything, and you'll see that everything's connected. And when you do that, those layers begin to peel back and peel back and peel back. The reason so is because there's things in the earth school, the levels, as you graduate and you move to higher levels in density and you get lighter and lighter, and you begin to welcome other beings who are higher vibrational and let go of the things we did as a child. The scripture says that when I was a child, I thought as a child, I acted as a child, but as I matured and became a man, I put away childish things. And so as we learn from our mistakes, as we learn from experience, and we just move forward, we're able to honor that and be illuminated to different things that are going to hinder us from that ascension, from ascending higher, from going to the next level. Because if you're too heavy, if you're carrying all this weight and all this baggage, you can't go to the higher levels. There's things that you have to learn by those teachers. They're angels, they're demons, they're your parents. Spirit speaks through everything, and you have to be the one who can listen and hear. So as you're doing each of those things that you're doing right now, the things that you know to do, it's going to reveal more. And that is a lifelong pursuit. Don't think that inwardly that you're not worthy. Don't think that it's going to be a long process until you have those desires that you feel are within you that are not going to come out. As long as you're conscious of it and you're doing that inner work, everything is going to unfold for you. Your path will be laid out before you as one of the chosen ones. And there's so many people who are testifying to that. And we're being guided. We're being taught from beyond the grave, from beyond the stars, if you will. There's so many, even though we talked about lower level negative entities, I think they're rooting for you, man. I think the lower level guys are saying, hey, man, I hope I never have to see you again. If you go to, the principal's office and you get a paddling as an adolescent, it hurts, might cry. You're sore for a couple of days. Hey, I don't want to see you in my office again. All right, you won't. Listen, that's tough love. That's a tough lesson. That was a hard lesson learned. But what about the kids who always keep coming back? The kids are there every week. They never learn from their mistakes. They never bring the light into that dark place. They never incorporate the light. They're always in this shroud of darkness, committing the same things over and over. So just know that everything is set up for your good, and what seemed like a curse, what seemed like that thing that was going to take you out, would be the very thing that God uses to catapult you into your destiny, into that place that you want to be. So continue to do that inner work. Don't be too hard on yourself, and enjoy the journey, brother. And in that, there's so many things with spirituality and grounding and confession and prayer and fasting and plant medicines. Listen, we have so many tools, but as long as you're doing that meditation, as long as you're getting quiet and you're searching your heart and you're asking those questions, it's going to be illuminated to you the next steps and what you need to do. So I hope that blesses you, bro.
Thank you for that. The next question is from Lottie Baker, asking, isn't everything truth because you experience it? You can accept it or reject it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm having some convos, I guess, on my Facebook right now with some of my Christian friends about that. And yeah, I think that our truths may be different, and that we create our reality, that through experience of what is possible, The scripture says that nothing shall by any means be impossible to them that believe. To one person, there's a limit to that belief. And the limit could be going out into an open field asking for a UFO sighting or an angel sighting. No, we can't do that, brother. It wasn't talking about that. You don't know until you try it. My reality is totally different from those people who don't believe that anymore, at least in that regards of what is able to be done, what is able to be birthed into my reality and to be my truth 100%. It's not a belief anymore. It started out as a belief. It started out as faith, but I think it even transcends faith, and now it becomes a knowing, an inner knowing. You can't talk me out of it. You can't debate me out of it. Only way you can debate me out is if you go out and you spend the time, at least have the experience, and now let us talk about it. But unless you've experienced that and the feelings and the emotions of any of that, yeah, I do think that we do have different truths, and we have different narratives. And I've been finding that out a lot lately, and many of us have. Just being on the internet and being in such a hard time like we're going through right now, you find people with different narratives, different belief systems. We're talking about the same thing, but they have two very, very, very different interpretations, and it's your experience that births your truth for sure. And so people will ask the question, say, well, TruthSeekah, are you saying that there is no truth and there's just endless pursuit of you're supposedly seeking truth and you're never going to get to the end of it? Yeah, you're right. Because that continues to evolve with consciousness. Because what I once thought was not possible because of life, because of time, and because of experience, I've entered a new realm, a new level, where at the lower level, at level 3, I didn't have that sword in the video game. But at level 7, you transition and you get new weapons, you get new artillery, and you got to fight different bosses, and the stages get harder. You didn't know this was coming. There's secrets in that level too. If you go and hold down on this button, you get to glitch the matrix. No, you can't. You can't glitch the matrix, bro. No, you haven't tried. Try it. Go stand there, hold down for 3 seconds, and you'll see you'll glitch the matrix on that level. Trust me. And so and knowledge is gained through experience, I believe. And so when it comes to truth, there's so many analogy and allegory when it comes to leveling up and what is possible. Nothing shall by any means be impossible to them that believe. I can't give you that ceiling. There is no ceiling. What you believe, yes, shows itself to you. And it changes things. Most of the stuff I experienced, all the stuff I just told you a while ago, all this demons and this stuff's come through the TV. I've seen movies about this stuff. And it showed itself to me. I believed it and I saw it. I watched a video with an old man who goes into the field, throws his hands up, and asks for ships to appear on sighting. Oh, that's kind of weird. I don't know anybody who does that. I know a lot of people. But if you go and ask for that, I don't know about that. So you have to be the one who steps out. And now we're creating our reality because we're changing it. We're making it up as we go. So yeah, there's new things, and things begin to show itself to you. And trust me, my book is full of all of these experiences in detail. And I do this. Like I talk about this. There's so much. If I've never encountered anything else again, I can go for days and days and days and just talk about the beauty of the spirit world and the beings that exist. What about the beings I haven't encountered? Now, it's not about having those encounters, but they impart something to you. It changes the game. Fairies, gnomes, elementals. You don't believe in elementals? You know who does? That warlock who summoned one on me. Elementals aren't real. They're just in lore. No. Go ask him. He'll give you the tutorial on how to do it. But you got to pay. Be a hefty price. Most likely a piece of your psyche. when you're doing damage and you're doing that, living a life of negativity. But I believe too. I don't know what it is. It didn't tell me its name. Something that looked like an 8 foot tall camel. A camel, yeah, a horse. Well, you know, there's in many of this lore, there's beings that look like horses, like entities that are like half horse and like minotaurs, and there's like all types of beings in demonology that and gods and stuff. It's like, hold on, so this maybe people have been writing about this stuff for a long time that's been forgotten. And when people begin to remember the ancient path and what was possible, again, all things, and people begin to become a channel or a portal from one realm into another. And I tie that back to the TV again, because your televisions are channels. You turn the channels. Your television is a portal. It's what's possible. It's what to wear. It's who to love. It's who to be afraid of. It's what to be afraid of. And there's a steadily feed into our psyche, into our consciousness of code of ethics, of conduct, of worthiness, everything you can think of. So we're channels, we're portals for that divine nature. And once we remember that, yeah, we can create our reality. And if we're good enough at it, we can become an alchemist, we can become a shaman, and we can pull things from that other realm into this one. Hopefully it's beautiful things. Hopefully it's enlightenment. Hopefully it's encouragement. Hopefully you're helping people when they're having a hard, hopefully it's not lower level demonic stuff. I don't vouch for any of that. So there's a responsibility with such knowledge, that I would say.
Thank you for that. The next question is from Claudine G, asking, how do you explain demonic possessions of innocent souls like children? Why does that happen?
Yeah, so I really believe in when you're getting into demonic possession, that you're dealing with the deeds that one's committing. When I was a child, again, when I look back at 4 years old and waking up in the middle of the night and these beings being in my room, pinning me down to the bed, and they were shadows. What is it? You know, what is it? Is it a bad dream? Is it shadow beings? Were they trying to scare me? Were they trying to warn me? Is it angels? Like, what is it? Now, one thing that I do know, if I was to look at set and setting, which are key in most mystical experiences, my family is from New Orleans, and my mom and my dad at the time, my grandmother, everyone practiced a little bit of voodoo. It's normal to burn certain candles, to do things, to make pacts with spirits, even in burning a candle. Like it was so common for my mom and them to do it back in those days, to where I remember phone calls of like, you know, so and so owes me $40 and they won't pay me. You got a red candle I can burn? Yeah, I got you one. I'll bring it over. And it's like, oh wow, you're bringing over a red candle for I can burn it and send that intention that when I burn it, I'm creating a tulpa, which is an entity that's created through the mind, and I'm sending it out, much like the warlock did me. So they're doing candle magic, but using it for negativity. Now you'll light a white candle and ask for prosperity. There's other candles that you would light for different reasons. But when the red ones and the black ones came out, they meant business. It's, I need something to do something evil or wicked on my behalf. So my family did that. So they tapped into the spirit world to a degree. I don't think they know what they're dealing with or what they were playing with at the time. It was just normal. It's the voodoo capital is New Orleans, right? On top of that, I talk about debauchery and I talk about drunkenness and I talk about drug use and all of this kind of stuff. As a little kid, I don't have a lot of memories, but I do have memories of crazy parties and waking up and going into the living room and there's people everywhere. There's drunkenness, people passed out on the floor. I remember sitting at the dinner table as 4 years old, eating candy out of the candy dish in the middle of the table. And there was another old drunk man across from me eating candy as well. And I'm talking to him, eating the candy. Oh, I like this one. I like that one. I'm 4 years old. And the man falls straight backward. He just passes out in mid conversation, mid sentence. He just loses consciousness from being so drunk and so intoxicated and drugs and all of that. He just falls back. And all of my dad and all, they had to run in there and grab him, pick him up. Oh, he's had too much, get him out. So this was like the atmosphere of strange individuals coming in and out of your home. Mom and dad burning candles, Ouija board, tarot cards. Like a lot of this stuff was in the atmosphere. So when it comes to your 4-year-old is in the next bedroom over sleeping and you're burning candles asking for negative entities to be summoned upon your enemies. There's a reason why Jesus says to pray for your enemies. Bless them who curse you. If someone takes your jacket, go get the other one. Take this one too. If you need it that bad, here's the other. If someone slaps you on the cheek, turn to them the other also. Like there's a reason you're not supposed to repay evil with evil. There's entities that are summoned with malicious intent, and especially doing candle magic. So with that, there's the set and setting, and there's the scenery. So you're doing all of these things, and just so happen, some of the entities that you're entertaining, that you've given legal ground to come into our home, have now walked into your son's bedroom and is messing with your son, and is now possessing your son. Your son's now 7, 8, 9 years old, and the beings are still with them. Still with them on some things that you did when you didn't know. That's why the scripture says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Because if they knew it, it wouldn't do such things. And so that's why spirituality, and that's why the potency of our words and our actions carry weight. Because if we knew that every word created beings, that we create as we speak, that life and death is in the power of the tongue, abracadabra. I create it as I speak it. I am the magician. I am the alchemist, and I get to use it for good or for bad. I think we would be cognitive about every action and about everything that we did. And I know that that was kind of a longer story, but when it comes to dealing with children and possession and entities, that's definitely something to look at. And I think it was my case for sure.
Thank you for that. What do you think about 2 more questions and then we can finish up?
Great.
Okay,
Yeah.
good
Having
deal.
fun, brother.
I
Thank you.
wanted to check with you first.
Mhm.
Sorry, I scrolled down. Now I lost my spot. This question is from Stacy Tillman, and I'm gonna not be able to pronounce this properly, but you might know. She's asking, what do you think about Jeffrey Dougherty, the Christian whistleblower? Many who say we have been horribly deceived. What's the truth about Jesus, the real God?
So I don't know much about his work, and I'm assuming the name's Jeffrey Daughtry. I don't know much about
Yeah.
his work in particular. So if you want to, I don't know, I can maybe do some research or what he's blowing the whistle on and how we've been deceived about religion or the true God, the true Jesus. I think the way to navigate through deception, because there's a lot of it, and to navigate through the opinions, because there's a lot of it, and to navigate through other people's truth, because there's a lot of it, is to have your own experience and have your own truth. And because once you have it, nobody can take it away from you. I go on podcasts. I talk to people from all walks of life who have a different experience and a different encounter and a different relationship with the Bible or a different relationship with spirituality or Jesus. And whether they don't believe or whether they watch the documentary that Jordan Maxwell put out that says that Jesus never existed. And so they watched it and it was shared from a place of authority and it seemed like they knew what they were talking about, and they gave a couple scriptures and they gave a couple historical references, and therefore it imparted something to us that we it tried to take our experience away from us. And so I talked to those people, um, question everything for sure, but once you have your experience, nothing can take that away from you. Now, yeah, you should be open to trying to seek and try to explain and figure out what it was, especially when you find out that it was something that it's not. But you also got to understand that there are rules of engagement. There are universal laws that apply to everyone, whether you're Christian or whether you're atheist or Buddhist or Hindu. There are universal laws and things that has cause and reaction that is part of this earth realm, and that everyone has to adhere to. And I think that many of those sacred texts explain that. So if anything's trying to be exposed, I would say look at all of the cultures, look at all of the religions, and whatever seems to be a meme, something that is repeating itself over and over through all of the religions, look at that as truth. Look at that as something that it's not just good for these people, but it's for everybody. It's not just good for this one sect, but everybody can tap into it. Now, the names and the titles and the cities and the places and the skin color and all of these things may be different, but the fruit, the results of said actions, of said beliefs are the same. So I don't care what names we put on these things. I think it's fun. I think I like all of the names. I'm not married to a name. I'm not married to a religion. I'm not married to an outcome. And I think for us to be real truth seekers, that we have to remain that way. Now, our experiences impart something to us. They birth something within us. Our traumas do that too. But just because we've had that experience, it doesn't mean that it's true. So there's this inner dialogue, there's this inner seeking, this inner knowing that we remain in. And I've made up my mind that I'm gonna champion love. I'm gonna champion peace. I'm gonna champion healing, and I'm gonna let that be a part of my story, and let that be a part of my truth. So the Bible says that everything that can be will be shaken, and it's a good thing. Anything that is not built upon that firm foundation of love and of peace and of righteousness and of good report, let it be shaken, because everything that is will stand at the end of the day. In standing in eternity, these things will have everlasting value. I really believe that. And again, I champion that work. I'm not married to a name. I'm not married to a religion. I'm married to my wife, and I'm married to the spirit of truth, which is love, and I call the Holy Spirit or Christ, and even those have many nuances and many names as well.
Thank you for that. Okay, so the last question I have is from Edward Sosa. So forgive me the written, however he wrote it. So I'm just going to read it, and I hope it makes sense. The question is, what do you think about Jesus going to India? Knowledge is power, ignorance is evil, and then magic is neutral.
Hey, thank you for that question. I think it's a good way to end the discussion too. And it's a good way to plug my upcoming album is entitled White Magic. White Magic is the title, and it's a polarizing word, magic, right? You said magic is neutral. I encourage you to join the discussion on my Facebook page. I'm getting attacked by a lot of my Christian friends with that terminology, white magic, because they would say there is no magic. There or only magic is conjuring of the demonic nature of black magic. So they don't see any contrast or hue within the colors. But I really do think that what you said is true. Magic is neutral. Spirituality is neutral. Our intentions, our motives, and the way that we use it gives it its color, whether it be white, black, gray. Other people say there's brown and many other different shades of colors as well. But the same is to be said with any tool. Magic is a tool. Energy is a constant flow. It's what you do with it. People, the message of Jesus is a very beautiful message, and it's very near and dear and close to my heart. But I've seen people extort that message. I've seen people use it to gain authority over people, to tell them that they're going to hell and to convince them that, and then be able to tell them anything else, to abuse them, to harm them. So that message is a pure message. It's just the message, but it's how the speaker, it's how the prophet, it's how the preacher shares it and delivers it. And you put words in God's mouth, and then therefore you color it with your own color. So something that's just neutral, you make it white, black, gray. A hammer. A hammer is a tool. It depends how you use it. You can build a house with a hammer. To some people, they use hammers every day, carpentry work. To another person, when they see that hammer, it's a murder weapon. You can kill somebody with that same hammer. With all of spirituality and everything that I've been talking about, polarities, left, right, color, contrast, up, down, yin, yang, positive, negative, north, south, east, west, there's polarities. They exist for a reason, to show you, the student, the contrast that they hold. And the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It's up to you. It's not up to my pastor. It's not up to my daughter. It's not up to my wife. It's up to me. It's up to you to be able to look at that thing and see beauty in it, to use it for good. Prayer, another tool. Prayer is a tool. Prayer is not something that's across the board good. Some people pray for their enemies. Some people pray for blessings upon their family. They pray that God would heal and touch people. So they're using prayers for a good reason. Good intention is connected to this modality of prayer. And for others, they would pray for your downfall. They're praying for your demise. They're praying that you fall so that they can take your position. They're praying to demons. They're praying like a young TruthSeekah, making pacts with fallen entities to go out and harm people. So therefore you have this same tool that is being used for either good, bad, or really not even being used at all, because the person doesn't know, and therefore you make it neutral. So yes, all energy, I believe, is neutral. All things exist. All beliefs exist. And for you, the practitioner, the believer, whatever word you want to put there, the magician, you have the power to say abracadabra and literally create it as you speak it. So again, with that being said, we understand the power and the potency of such tools. You don't let your kid come to a job site on a construction site and just let little kids run around. Some people do, but that's not the analogy. You have to be trained with the equipment. You have to be trained with the tools. And so knowing that everything has polarity, every tool, every modality, and every person makes it a lot more interesting and a lot more, I bring that into my spiritual practice to know that I have the ability, because we get on these high horses that people are only good or only bad. When the fact of the matter is people are both, and we have the ability to choose. Choose life that you may live. Choose good, and good will come back to you. Do no harm. If you do it, you create more of it, and it begins to show itself to you. So knowing that when someone does good to you without wanting something in return, when somebody chooses that narrow path, when you choose it every time, know that you're making the right decision, and it's never the wrong. Even if you don't get vengeance, even if you don't repay evil for evil, the universe has a way of working it out, of loosing and binding teachers that can teach that person way better than you can. And that's the gist of this entire conversation.
Any thoughts on the part where he's asking, what do you think about Jesus going to India?
Okay. Again, with magic, I think that comes into play. I don't know much about India per se. And there's a lot of theory. There's a lot of books. There's a lot of shrines. I think there's a shrine to his mother Mary in India, which is really interesting. And they believe that I think they have her burial ground in India. Interesting. Many people say he went to India and was taught. Many people say he went to India and taught. I do know this. I don't know about India. I'm not against it, but I will say I know this for a fact. All of the biblical patriarchs take pilgrimages to Egypt. And Egypt is the birthplace of the mystery schools and the great mysteries of the Magi, of the Jedi, Star Wars and the Jedi Knights and being trained in that Jedi order. That's from Egypt. They're called, if you look up the Jedi priests, Djedi, Jedi priest of Egypt, every prophet and every patriarch took a pilgrimage to Egypt. Moses was trained in Egyptian magic. Daniel, one of the greatest magicians, dream interpreters. Joseph, these guys were skilled in divination. These guys were skilled in spirituality. And I think that all of them used it as a form of white magic. I think that maybe some of the other ones were misguided. But as far as taking that pilgrimage to a place to learn, they went to Egypt to learn. And I tie that in with Jesus to say that Jesus, when he was a child, they were trying to kill all the firstborns when he was born. So Herod put out a decree because he heard that the Messiah that the Jews looked to was being born. The Magi, the stargazers, the magicians were the ones to greet the Messiah and follow the star to his birthplace. It wasn't the pastors, it wasn't the priests, it wasn't the teachers, it was the Magi, the magicians, the stargazers who read his story in the stars, and they showed up there. And then his family has to leave town, and they do because Herod went on and killed all the firstborn between that certain period that he heard that there was children being born. So he goes to Egypt as an infant, and he comes back to Israel, to Jerusalem. The next time we see, this is biblical, like he comes back at the age of 13. It's like 13 and 14 as he's coming for pretty much his bar mitzvah. We don't know where he was before that. And you leave it up to theory, but we do know he leaves and goes to Egypt. We see him coming back at 13, 14 years old, and he's in the temple. His parents are worried. Where is he? It's at Passover. He's in the temple. They find him in the temple. And when they go to the temple, 13-year-old little boy, supposedly, is teaching all of the scribes and the Pharisees, and he's teaching them things, blowing their minds when it comes to knowledge, spirituality, magic, if you will, lore. Where did he learn it from? If he learned it from them, they would already knew, and he couldn't have taught them anything. He's just a young boy. They're far older. You're not going to teach your elders something that they don't know. He goes, what I believe to be taught in Egypt, that we know for sure because the scripture says it, but we don't know where else he went. He could have pilgrimaged to India as well. But I find that very interesting. Just like all the other patriarchs go and they're taught by the ways. It says Moses was trained in all of the wisdom of Egypt. Daniel, the same thing. Jesus comes back with all of this information, so much so that he's teaching his elders and he's blowing their minds. So let's look into Egypt. Look into some of the Egyptian mysteries that are lost and forgotten as well.
TruthSeekah, thank you for that. So just real quick feedback on some of your answers. Crypto says, love it, thank you. And Stacy wanted to say, please tell him I'm so very grateful for his answer. It seems seems I knew it, and the confirmation is just what I needed.
Awesome.
So, TruthSeekah, thank you very much. All of those watching, again, all the links, everything that TruthSeekah has to offer, the podcast, everything else it does, the links are in the description below. And so, TruthSeekah, I want to just give you the last word about anything else that you might have going on, if you have a specific schedule of when you do your podcast, and anything else you want to finish up with.
For sure. Again, thank you so much for having me on, and let me come on here and share your platform. And I love what you do, and thank you for creating this space. My website is truthseekah.com, truthseekah.com. All of my stuff is there. I do guided meditations, spiritual and esoteric hip hop. I have songs about everything that we spoke about tonight. And my new album is about to be officially released. The pre-order is up right now at the website. It's entitled White Magic, and finding beautiful, articulate ways to share the spirituality, to share truth, and to impart awe and wonder and creativity in my music, podcast, and everything I bring to the table. I go live every Tuesday and Thursday on YouTube, and we're also live on all the podcasting apps as well. So for those of you who are interested or resonate with anything I brought to the table, definitely check it out. I'd love to answer your questions and connect with you on social media. So I'm on all of them as well. So thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you. I really appreciate it. And also everyone else watching, thank you for tuning in and listening. It's a bit different today that I have something going on live, but that was the only way we could schedule it with both of our schedules. So I'm glad we did. And
Thank
so
you for accommodating.
No problem, anytime. And so coming up this Wednesday at 7 p.m., we're going to have open lines, and I'm going to be talking about some things that were recently in the NDAA about UFPs, and then, of course, another podcast, not podcast, but I call it a webcast because I don't do podcasts, so whatever you see is only on YouTube and some of few other platforms. But again, then on Friday at 7 p.m., I'm going to have another live stream. So, TruthSeekah, thank you again. Everyone else watching, thank you as well. And I'll see you guys later.